Do you want to catch more fish from the beach in October? My name is Cathy Sanders and I'm a beach fishing guide in Northeast Florida. I'm also the owner of Fishing Girl, and for this video I have compiled years of beach fishing knowledge, pictures, and footage from past Octobers to show you which fish to target from the beach in October, what baits and rigs to use, and we're going to talk about tropical storms and hurricanes that happen in October. And keep watching to the end of the video because I'm going to show you step by step how to make a mortician rig. And even if you're not in Northeast Florida, the tips and techniques that I'm going to be showing you in this video can be used across any beach. It can be used in different years. Fishing techniques and how to catch fish, they don't trend. They can work. It's science behind it year after year after year. And if you've just found my channel through this video, I'm going to be putting out one of these videos every month of the year so that you can know what to do to catch more fish for that month. So you're going to want to make sure to be subscribed so that you won't miss any of those videos. October is such a huge month for surf fishing, whether you're located in Florida or anywhere along the east coast of Florida. And let me know in the comments if that's the same, maybe in Texas or California, or if you're in another country. In October especially is when we have the mullet run in full swing, and we have all of the big fish that are chasing all of those mullet in the surf. Plus we have the pompano that are returning back to our waters, so it makes it for a really fun time for beach fishing. October is also a prime time for surf fishing tournaments. That is a nice way that you can use to get to know other anglers, even earn some cash while you're doing something fun like surf fishing. So let me know in the comments if there is a certain tournament that you like to go to every October. We also tend to have more hurricane and tropical storm activity in October, partly because the waters in the Gulf and the Caribbean are still so warm, so it makes it a breeding ground for all of these tropical storms and systems moving through. As I'm making this video right now, I'm trying to make it ahead of Hurricane Helene, which is supposed to make landfall tomorrow. So I'm trying to get all this recorded because we might lose power even over here on the East Coast, but I don't want to talk about that just yet. I'm going to talk about that later in the video, so keep watching. I mentioned those warm waters in the Gulf and the Caribbean, and even here in Northeast Florida, we're still looking at the beginning of October, our water temperatures hovering between 80 to 83 degrees, and by the end of the month, they're probably only going to drop to the high 70s, maybe high to mid 70s, which doesn't seem like a lot. But that drop in temperature is what's going to start bringing these fish back to our waters, like pompano, like bluefish, and like flounder. Let's talk about what fish to target in October. So the main fish that you're going to want to be targeting in October are redfish, bluefish, pompano, and flounder. The reason that we're seeing bluefish and flounder coming back is because of that drop in water temperature that I mentioned. And it's actually just the last week or two when we've started catching them since the spring. And if you haven't watched my video yet about fish migration and water temperatures for beach fishing, I'm going to put a link to that in the description, and that video will also be at the end of the video that you can watch next, because I take a deeper dive into all of the main species of fish, their migration patterns, the water temperatures that you're going to see them at. So you're going to want to watch that video so you know when to target which fish. But other than our target species, there's so many other species of fish that I have caught in October, including mangrove snapper, palometa, spotted sea trout, big whiting, black drum, as well as sharks and stingrays and catfish. But for this video, the two fish that I want to focus on the most are redfish and pompano. October is a great time to target bull redfish in the surf. You're going to see them running in the surf more now than any other time of the year. I know a lot of people who have caught bull redfish in the surf, and for the last few Octobers, I have gone to a tournament put on by the Kids Can Fish Foundation called the Running of the Bulls Tournament, and I was there and got first-hand footage of these bull redfish getting caught in the surf. I've not personally caught a big bull redfish in the surf yet. I've caught several slot ones, but for the bulls, they have eluded me. So the most popular way to target redfish is with a Carolina rig or a fish finder rig with something like mullet or a whiting head or something similar to that on it. There's many companies that make those kind of rigs all different ways with just little variations. So if there's one that you prefer to use, let us know in the comments. And if there's one that you would like to have me try out, maybe you make your own redfish rigs and you'd like to have me test it out. If I catch a redfish on it, I'm sure to give you a shout out. in the video that I'm sure will be posted about it. In the description, I'll have my email listed and you can contact me to send that rig over to me to try out. So remember that redfish tournament I mentioned that I had been to? Well, I never caught a redfish there, but what I did end up catching in 2022 was the pompano that tied their 40-year-old state record. It really is an incredible story that I don't have time to get into, but I'll post links in the description if you want to go back and you can watch the full video. I've got a short about it that keeps getting lots and lots of views. The really cool thing is that the lady that I tied her record, her name was Laura Cheek back then, well, she found me on Facebook. She had never been surf fishing before, and for her birthday, she came out and did a charter with me, and we both caught pompano that day. We got pictures together holding our certificates, and it was such a fun day. It was one of the most memorable charters that I've had to date. So speaking of pompano, when it comes to pompano, keep in mind that in the fall, pompano tend to run further out, while in the springtime, they seem to run closer to the shore. I'll talk about what bait and rigs to use for pompano in a little bit. And if you're finding this information helpful, you'll want to subscribe because along with those monthly beach fishing tips videos like this one, I'm putting out a video every single week to help you catch more fish from the beach. Let's talk about tropical storms in October. Big thing that you have to remember with these tropical storms is that you just can't look at the cone area. That is, the cone only shows you where the eye wall is going. And in many cases, especially here in Florida, if the eye wall is going to be going through, like say the Gulf area, like a lot of them have been going through the Gulf lately, the counterclockwise rotation of the storm means that on the east, and especially the east and the north side, seems to get a lot of the rain bands, a lot of the winds, a lot of the effects, the tornadoes, the flooding, the storm surges are going to hit east of that eye wall. So you cannot just look at that cone area. Whenever we have a big storm, what I try to do to help you guys out is I get down to the beach after the storm has passed, and I'll show you what it looks like. I'll show you if there's been erosion. I'll show you if there's access points that are closed, which ones are still open, if there's been areas flooded out, if there anything that's going to affect beach fishing. I try to show those things. So make sure you're subscribed so that I may even go live if I see a really damaged beach area and I have a good enough signal there. I might go live right from that area and show you firsthand what it looks like. Now in 2023 in Northeast Florida, we really didn't have a lot of activity. I think I went out after Idalia, but it really didn't affect our area too much. But in 2022, I'm going to show you some of that damage right over here. We had Hurricane Ian that came through. Just take a look at this footage from after Ian came through. Jungle Hut Park Beach was not accessible with a beach cart for a while. Storm surge washed away all the sand from the access point. Flagler Beach's access ramp, the sandy part, was shut down for a long time. The end of Beverly Beach's ramp had been completely washed away. In next month's video, I'm going to show you all the damage that had happened from Hurricane Nicole in November 2022. So be watching for that video. Now let's talk about what bait to use for beach fishing in October. And the biggest thing in October is the mullet schools coming through. As you can see from this video, we showed you some mullet running last month's video, but here's some underwater footage with thousands of mullet running. It really does give a good opportunity for those who love to throw lures in the surf, because when you see those mullet running so thick that they're jumping out of the water, and you see little splashes, try throwing like a silver spoon and retrieving it quickly. You might be hooking up on bluefish, on ladyfish, or Spanish mackerel if they're present still. If you can find sand fleas in the area you're at, try using them. I've had several people asking me from this area if I have been finding sand fleas recently, and so I guess there are some areas where the colonies have moved. Definitely when we have the beach renourishment like we've seen down at Flagler Beach. From my experience, when you have that much sand brought in and dumped on the natural shoreline, you're going to probably not see sand fleas for several months. maybe 6 months or more, while the colonies have relocated themselves before they'll actually start coming back to that area that's been so drastically changed. I tend to find sand fleas closer to high tide, so if you're there at a lower tide, you might just look a little bit higher up on the shore, but you might need to dig down maybe like 4 to 6 inches in order to find them. Watch where the birds are pecking, but definitely as the tide starts coming in, look for those sand fleas, look for where their antennas are coming up past the sand. You'll see the sand looks disturbed, and then after a few seconds it will go back to normal, and that's a pretty good sign of that's where the sand fleas are located. As I mentioned last month, I always try to have shrimp on hand, especially fresh dead shrimp. So I'll get fresh bait from the tackle shop, fresh shrimp, and then I break it down into smaller pieces. And I've shown this on several of my videos of how I use my fresh dead shrimp. But remember, you only need a little tiny piece of shrimp for pompano because they have very small mouths. So one of the mistakes I see people making is that they're using too big of a piece of bait, and then they're not getting hooked up because the fish can't really even get their mouth around it. I always try to have salted shrimp on hand with me too. That way, if the tackle shop's not open, I've still got my salted shrimp with me. I always have fish gum and other synthetic baits on hand. That way, if the tackle shop is out of shrimp, or if they're not open when I want to get out to the beach, then I've got my salted shrimp, and I've always got some type of fish gum, several different flavors that I can use, and it's always working for me. Next, let's talk about what rigs to use for October beach fishing. I'm going to be showing you at the end of the video how to make a mortician rig, but I want to tell you about it first, the reason that you want to use a mortician rig. So now that the bluefish are back in town, you might say, they're very toothy fish. If you find yourself getting your whole rig or maybe one of your hooks bitten off, this was happening to us recently. They are attracted to the same baits and stuff as the other fish, and if your line is too thin, they're going to bite right through it because their teeth are very sharp. But a mortician rig is going to have a stronger main line, and then it's going to have snelled hooks on drops that are attached to that main line. So the drops can be a lower pound line so that they're less visible, or maybe made with fluorocarbon so they're not as visible in there. But if that gets bit off, your whole main line and your expensive sinker is not going to be lost. So that's a very good rig to be using. Now that the bluefish are back, I'm going to show you at the end of the video, step by step, I'm going to walk you through how to make one of those rigs for yourself. The next kind of rig you're going to want to have for beach fishing is some type of pompano rig. And lastly, for rigs, you're going to want to make sure you have artificial lures with you, especially a spoon, because if you see those mullet blowing up, you're going to want to get your casting rod out right away and start throwing right into the middle of that blow up. And more than likely, you're going to be hooking up on a bluefish or Spanish or any of those fish that are chasing those mullet. You have a good opportunity to catch fish on lures, and it's such a fun way to fish on the beach. And it's best to do this on calm days when you don't have a really rough surf or a whole lot of wind, and you can see those blow-ups really easily. And my biggest suggestion is to have a silver spoon, at least 3/4 of an ounce, but don't go up to 2 ounces. I've tried to throw 2-ounce spoons before, and it just seems like they drag on the bottom. They're too heavy for the surf. Keep watching for our pro tip today of how to tie a mortician rig, and with that I'm going to also be teaching you how to tie a clinch knot, how to snell a hook again, how to tie a figure 8 knot, and the whole mortician rig, of course, all together. But to wrap it up, October is really the time that we have all been waiting for when it comes to beach fishing. The mullet are running, the pompano are coming back, the redfish are here, and you're going to want to get out there and you're going to want to fish. And so I hope that this video has equipped you with some tips and techniques and help you catch more fish in October. So not only are there really nice species of fish running, but also our air temperature has dropped, so it makes it a lot more bearable to be out there past 9 a.m. in the morning without getting too hot and overheated. Hitting the beach first thing in the morning is still an ideal thing to do if you can get the tide to match up with the type of beach that you're going to be at, whether it's a high impact beach or a low impact beach. Plus you get the beautiful sunrise on the beach, and October sunrise, like you see right here, is an awesome thing to see. And now is a a really good time to learn how to use a cast net, especially with the mullet running so thick. You can have bait for your trip, and you can also have some to freeze back for future trips. Just make sure that you're not going over the state regulations. Here in Florida, we can only harvest 50 mullet per day. So that might sound like a lot, but when you're catching them as much as we were, like I was on this trip with these ladies, you're gonna easily get to that 50 mullet mark. So you don't want to be caught with too many mullet in your cooler if FWC happens to check it. Okay, we're gonna make our mortician rig now, and I put this towel down because our table is really reflective and you wouldn't be able to see anything with the reflections going on. We've got our swivels. These are a little bit heavier duty swivels. You are targeting bigger fish, ones that fight harder. So, and these are, I believe, 4/0 hooks. They're the octopus style, which I like for using a snell. We've got 60-pound main line that we're gonna be using and 40-pound. Now this is mono. You can use fluorocarbon. I would suggest mono for your main line because that's gonna give you a little bit of stretch. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna set up our main line. And what I'm gonna do, and you won't be able to see it at all, but I'm going to measure about 3 to 4 feet for a main line, and I'm gonna cut that right there. So the first thing we're gonna do is attach this barrel swivel to the top of your main line with a clinch knot. So we're just coming through the top there. I'm gonna kind of pinch it a little bit. And then I'm gonna wrap this around about 4 times. I usually like to do 5. 4 is plenty, and this is such thick line that it's gonna make it hard to, it'll make it hard for it to really tie down evenly. And you can use water, but like this, because it's so thick, this isn't going to come down as neatly as it usually will. And maybe there's other people who have ways to make it lay down flat, but it's still a good knot there. So there's the top of our line. I like to put these swivels on first. Maybe you have a different method of what you like to do next, but now we're also going to do the bottom with a clinch knot. I'm going to come down, leaving about that much for wrapping around. Wrap it around 4 times again. 1, 2, 3, oop, and 4. It's so stiff. It's a very thick line. I'm usually using 20-pound mono. So then we're gonna bring that through. I didn't explain this too well. So we're gonna take that through the loop at the top of the swivel there, and then tighten it down as much as you can. Like I said, it may not lay down flat just because it's so thick. Now we're going to make our drops. And what we're going to do is tie 2 figure-8 knots a few inches apart from each other. And this is going to, in between those spots is where we're going to be putting the drops. So I'm gonna start with the top first. So I want the first one to be right about in here. So what I'm gonna do is make a loop, and I'm gonna hold that. I'm gonna wrap this around. Then I'm gonna take the bottom end and bring it through that loop and pull it all the way through. And it's not wanting to do the thing. Okay, so now what we have is this little figure-8. If you can see that, this little figure-8, and we're going to pull it till it's tight. Then we're gonna make another one. So we want to maybe about this far away from each other. So we're gonna make that loop again, wrap it around. It's real stiff, so you may have to hold it as you're wrapping it. And bring that bottom swivel through again. I wish this didn't hold so much memory from being on the line. Okay, so now we have our second figure-8. I'm gonna tie that down. Okay, so now we have our 2 figure-8 knots, and when we add the drop, it's gonna go in between this place, so it stays in that area. Okay, so the next one we want to have about this far away. We don't want them interfering with each other. So we're going to do this again, wrap it around, By the time you make 1 or 2 of these, you're going to be a master at these figure 8 knots. Tighten it down. A little bit away. Make a loop, wrap it around. Bring the swivel through. This line keeps wanting to get in the way. All right, then we're going to tighten that down. So now we have the spots for our drops to go. This one's a little further apart than I wanted them, but that's okay. It's still going to keep it contained. Okay, so we're going to start these snells on these hooks. These are 4/0, I believe, octopus style hook. And I switched the line that I'm using. This is actually a 30-pound test fluorocarbon, and it's by Seaworks. They make some good products. So we're gonna first of all take that through the top here. And I just wanted to go lighter than the 40-pound. Wrap it around 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Hold that there. I'm gonna trim this. And we can trim it shorter in a minute, but then we're gonna bring this right back up through the eye there. Pull it tight. We'll trim this tag end just a bit, but we don't wanna trim it up into the loops. So now we need to make the loops that's going to attach it to the main line, and then we're gonna determine how far do we want this to drop. So if we want it to drop maybe like 4 or 5 inches, then we want this loop to be right about here. So yeah, this is way too long. So I'm gonna bring this, wrap it around itself. You can see what I'm doing here, and I'll be doing it twice. We're gonna do 2 drops. Gonna wrap that around. And you want both of these, so it'll be tighter and tougher. Just making a loop like that. There you go, that's not hard at all. And I'll trim this tag end a bit, like that. So now we're gonna attach this to the main line here. We're going to just feed that hook through that loop we made. We're putting it between those 2 figure 8 knots. Wrap that around, and then pull this tight. So now this can move on this line, but it's not going to get past those figure 8 knots as long as it stays tighter like that. So there is our first drop right there. And now we're going to make the second drop. Okay, same thing again. We're going to start with putting the line through the back. We wrap it around 8 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Hold that. Trim your line. Now we're going to feed that end through the top of the hook. So that should be right back through. Tighten it up. Trim that. Then again, we want maybe a 4 or 5 inch drop, so we're going to put that here, wrap it around, and wrap it around again. And then tighten that. And then here, we're going to trim this just a little bit. All right, and then we're going to attach this just like we did the first one. We're putting that hook, place that behind the line here between these 2 figure 8 knots. We're bringing this around, bringing it through that loop, and then through, bring that knot through itself and pull that tight. So just like the other one, it's going to stay on the line between those 2 figure 8 knots. And there you go. There is our mortician rig. You've got 2 drops. If something bites that off, they're not going to bite the main line. They're going to bite that hook off. So this is a great rig to use for October beach fishing. Thank you so much for watching this video. I appreciate it. If you have learned something from this video, go ahead and leave me a comment. And like I said, we're going to be putting one of these videos out every month, so go ahead and subscribe if you're not subscribed already, because I want to help you catch more fish every month of the year. But thanks again for watching. Tight lines, and God bless.